In one of the quiet suburbs of New York lies a small town called Amityville, a town that seems taken straight from a painting. Clean streets, identical houses, and trees surrounding everything. But on one of those streets stands a strangely shaped house with upper windows resembling eyes, as if it watches everyone who passes by. This house is 112 Ocean Avenue, now known as the Amityville House, the house that has caused the most terror in American history. The story began at dawn on November 13th, 1974, when a young man named Ronald DeFeo Jr., 23 years old, woke up as if something had taken over his mind. Quietly, he grabbed his father's rifle and headed to his parents' room. He shot them one by one. Then he went to the room of his 4 siblings and shot them all while they were asleep. No one screamed. No one woke up. 6 members of one family were killed in minutes, without the neighbors hearing a single gunshot. When police asked him why he did it, he replied coldly, "The voices in the house told me to." Ronald was arrested and sentenced to life in prison, but the story did not end with his death or imprisonment. That crime was only the beginning of something mysterious and dark inhabiting this place. 1 year later, a new family bought the house at a very low price. George and Kathy Lutz moved in with their 3 children, thinking they had found their dream home. Everything seemed normal at first. The garden was beautiful, the rooms were spacious, and the river was close to the backyard. They did not know they had moved into the darkest place of their lives. From the very first days, signs began to appear. Some nights, George felt a strange cold in parts of the house, even though the fireplace was on. Temperatures would suddenly drop, even in the middle of the day. Foul smells would appear and disappear without any clear reason. One day, a room upstairs was filled with hundreds of flies, despite it being winter and freezing outside. They tried cleaning and closing the windows, but the flies kept coming back. Things started to get stranger. George would wake up every night at 3:15 a.m., the same time the original murders occurred. He did not understand why, but he heard sounds coming from the basement, soft whispers, and sometimes slow footsteps on the stairs. When he went to check, everything was in place, except the fireplace, which was burning by itself. Their little daughter, Misty, began talking to an imaginary friend she called Jody. At first, the mother thought it was normal for a child, but Misty said something that made her parents' blood run cold. She said that Jody was not human, but a strange pig-like creature with glowing red eyes that lived in the upstairs room. They didn't believe her, until George saw it himself one night, standing by his daughter's window. Its eyes glowed red, then disappeared suddenly, leaving behind mysterious animal-like footprints on the wet floor. As days passed, the house continued to change. Doors would slam open and shut by themselves, furniture moved, and voices spoke in the dark. Walls would ooze a sticky red liquid resembling blood, slowly seeping as if the house itself were bleeding. On some nights, they would hear faint organ music from the basement, even though no one owned an organ. George felt as though something was trying to control him. He became irritable, sleepless, staring into the fire for hours. He started hearing voices telling him to stay in the house, sometimes whispering his name. Kathy, his wife, began having terrifying nightmares every night about the murders that happened in the very rooms they now slept in. She saw blood on the walls and saw Ronald DeFeo's face smiling at her in the darkness. Their only dog refused to approach the basement, barking wildly at the door before running away, hiding and trembling. No one could understand what was happening, but they felt an evil presence, always watching them. On the 28th night of their stay, the unthinkable happened. George woke to the screams of his children and ran to his bedroom to find his wife Kathy levitating in the air as if an invisible hand were holding her. She was crying and screaming that she felt something choking her. Loud noises filled the house, doors slammed, windows shattered, whispers turned into screams. In that moment, George made a decision. He grabbed the children and fled the house in the middle of the night, in heavy rain, without looking back. They left everything behind: furniture, pictures, food, even the keys. Days later, the police entered the house but found nothing unusual on the surface. However, some officers said they felt a heavy presence in the air, as if the walls themselves were watching. A priest who tried to bless the house said that while he prayed, he heard a rough voice whisper in his ear, "Get out of here." Then he felt a sharp slap on his face, with no one around. The house became the subject of countless books and films. Journalists flocked to it, and people were divided between believers and skeptics. Some said the Lutz family made up the story for money and fame. Others swore that something real inhabited the place, and that the curse was still ongoing. Even after new owners changed the windows and the house number to hide it from visitors, people still claimed to see a faint light flickering upstairs after midnight, and hear strange noises coming from inside the walls. Now, more than 50 years later, the Amityville House still stands in the same place, on the banks of the river in New York. But no one wants to live there long. Everyone who tries says the same thing, greater than, "The house doesn't want us here." And when passers-by walk by at night, some swear they see a shadow standing behind the window, staring at them with red eyes, smiling slowly, as if waiting for the next victim. Thus, the Amityville House remains a witness to all that cannot be explained. The house that combines crime and curse, blood and whispers, truth and nightmares. No matter how many walls are painted or windows changed, something remains. Something that never dies. Something waiting for anyone daring enough to enter. Some visitors claim to hear footsteps inside. Others say they see a shadow moving behind the glass. But the scariest thing is that someone once found a small note at the door that read, "You're late. We've been waiting for you." Silence for 2 seconds, then a cold whisper. "Do you dare visit us?" If you enjoyed this story, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, because what comes next is darker and closer than you can imagine.